Hello, and welcome back to Gaming Views, the podcast that's like a perfectly timed stratagem in a bug hunt. It changes everything. I'm your host, Dan H., and joining me once again is the man, the myth, the legend himself, the only online partner you'll ever need, providing the game is Mass Effect, Dan P. He's the only person I know who has more strategic prowess in a game of checkers than most people have in an MMORPG epic. Try saying that 3 times fast. Tonight, we're not just looking back at the good old days of gaming, we're diving headfirst into the digital trenches of multiplayer. We'll explore how we went from sharing a single screen and maybe a few choice words with a sibling in couch co-op to teaming up with strangers across the globe and definitely sharing a few more choice words. So grab your headsets, sync up with your squad and prepare to press start on this week's episode of Gaming Views.
Flair, pixel dreams and worlds to share, joystick tales and button cues. Welcome to Gaming Views.
Hey, Daddy boy.
Beautiful intro. And you know what, right? The really funny thing, because we like most weeks, we've not really spoken about what we're bringing to the table here. Yeah, but just the thing about like sibling or family rivalry. The last few days, all I've been thinking about is the amount of fights that happened pretty much over gaming now, literally. And then I was saying to you, we'll speak about it after, but I was having a bit of a debate with myself about this topic and what it means.
You have to be careful how you say that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're referencing Mass Effect at the same time. Don't.
And Mass Effect was actually going to feature in something I say. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to this because it's quite a broad subject we're going to talk about in a way.
I started going down a rabbit hole, genuinely. Yeah. We do research. We should help the listeners by understanding we don't just cowboy everything.
I know, but we haven't spoken about it. So that's why when you for a couple of weeks in a row, your intros have pretty much hit a lot
covered
of bits.
Everything. Did I do that today? I haven't covered everything.
Yeah. The bingo.
Mention a few things.
Dan's intro bingo.
I like that. We should send out cards.
Yeah.
Rightio. So let's start as we mean to go on. What have you been playing?
So again, with the subject we're talking about, we've played a couple of games with that other pod, which we mention all the time. I mean, do we say their name?
Something about.
Yeah, it's like a game club pod. We played a bit more Helldivers, didn't we? Too. We played some Baldur's Gate 3, which I was quite excited about.
We did
last night.
We had a good go at Baldur's Gate 3, and it was mucho enjoyo. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, really good. Outside of that, I've been playing a game for a review, which is probably going to be the first one I've played that's driven me insane. And
welcome to the club.
Yeah, and I sent you a video of it, didn't I? And just of the opening intro, and I think that did your head in. I think it felt like.
God. Yeah. I'm just flabbergasted. I don't know how these things get past. Like, you know, I'm assuming there's QA in some of this stuff. I'm assuming people are going. I'm just going to check that that's okay, that it sounds okay, or even sounds human. In some instances,
I'm wondering if our friend AI has had some involvement in that. But
that's a good
coming out in a few weeks. It'll be coming out in a few weeks' time. But I've got to the very last bit of it, and I haven't felt like wanting to snap my controller in a long time. But
that's quite impressive, considering what I saw of it. Because even that 2-minute slot that I saw, I was just like, that'd have gone out the window. Quite possibly with my Xbox.
Yeah, but again, the irony of the episode we're talking about, it's actually a game that can be played local co-op, but I'm not. So you take it both. I
won't be joining you in that.
You control both plays. But no, I actually think it would be worse to be played as local co-op, but that'll all be out in a few weeks. But I finally got round to, a few nights ago, starting the new Shinobi game. And it plays good. It looks beautiful.
It does.
It's such a good looking game.
Yeah. It's going to have to wait.
Yeah, it's such a good looking game. It feels really good as you're playing it. I'm very early on, but the way they slowly introduce, like a good game should, the different mechanics. Yeah. Really good game. Really good game.
Did you just while we're here, spoiler alert, did you go through the first elite room? Did you find it and did you go through it?
I'm not sure if I have now.
There's a room you go to. It's a little bit hidden away, and there's a mask that you hit, and it starts an elite battle with a load of elites, and then it gets.
No.
Yeah, I did that. I blamed when we were talking to Joey. I blamed him and cursed him because that's him getting inside my head and going, yeah, but you should finish it. You should try and do it. Do it, Dan. Do it. I can't do Saxon. So I did, and I died about 20 times, but I did do it. Yeah. And then it went, oh, you need to do 2 of these to get the special item. What? 2 rooms? What I've just been through, I should have earned it now.
Yeah. Give me the goodies. But yeah, other than that, because like I said, we've played a few multiplayer games, haven't we? We've played those games.
Yeah.
And yeah, a couple of review games, but yeah, it was good to get stuck into Shinobi, something different. Yeah, I mean, by now, last week's episode would have come out with David Turner from the Computer Game Show. And yeah, like I said, I think I was saying there, it wasn't on my radar till he mentioned it on their show. And yeah, I'm really glad it did. Like I said, because it's mid-priced, isn't it? I think it's £25. So it's at that sweet spot. And like I said, it's just such a really nice looking game. So yeah, that's what I've been playing.
Yeah, it is a beautiful looking game. But for my side, it's not. I just can't bring myself to buy and download another game I'm not going to get round to. And that's where I am right now, because I've just got, so I obviously went without my tech for a while the lounge was being done, which is now all finished, and then set the tech up. But during that period of time, I got that kind of, I should probably have something to play while I do it. So I bought Bloober Team's latest, Chronos New Dawn.
Yeah.
And I bought Borderlands 4. And I bought Dying Light, the Beast.
Oh, yes, yeah.
That's out this Wednesday. So that's 3 big marquee games that I've got that aren't small games. You know,
I was going to say, Borderlands, notoriously known for being very tight linear games, right?
Right. Yeah, so I'm doing it to myself. Then I'm still going through Gears of War, another one that's, 20, 30 hours. So I've got all these kind of things lined up, and then I'm sitting there going, oh, I've got reviews to do of games. And then I've got you and the boys going, just jump on Helldivers and Baldur's Gate. And I'm going, where? I have nothing. I genuinely, so we'll talk about Baldur's Gate first. So it will come up later. But Baldur's Gate, we played last night, had tons of fun. It was my first proper go online at using my Meta Quest 3. Yeah. So I was actually playing in VR, not in VR, but with a VR screen in front of me, like this 80-inch screen floating right in front of me. And it was flawless. I mean, kudos to both Meta and Microsoft for that streaming to the export. It was glorious. And it looked, I sent you boys a picture of it, and it was just such a fun experience. Discord worked really well. I could hear you guys, the whole experience was brilliant. So that was a lot of fun. I had to move my PlayStation for us to be able to play Helldivers because it just overheats and blows up in the living room. So I did that, and we played a bunch of that Saturday night, which was also fun. But I did get the opportunity Saturday because my kids were off doing something else and my wife was doing something else. So I spent quite a lot of the day pumping some hours into Borderlands 4, which is a much improved experience over 3. It's more open world this time. It's a whole heap of fun. And I said to you, actually, while I was chatting with you, in multiplayer, I think it'll be glorious because there are these moments. So you get to an area and there'll be a purple dome over this area. And if you go in, a boss will spawn, a completely random boss. Not from the main campaign, just one they've made up, and it will spawn. And I haven't come across the same one twice yet, which is great. And I've done about 9 or 10 of these things. And this random boss will spawn, but they'll bring in, that fight to survive thing. So when you're dying, so they bring in kind of lower level enemies, but it gets so manically chaotic while you're doing this thing. And I can just imagine if you're able to do those in kind of 4-player, it would just be awesome. Like, it's so good. And it's open world. So, one of you can be the other side of the map and you can still communicate and do so. So yeah, really enjoying that. I haven't got any further on Chronos. Didn't pick up Gears of War again. So I've kind of been a bit limited since last time we played. And bearing in mind I've only had the lounge for 3 days or 4 days since doing that. I've done all right. So I managed to get to about level 19, I think, on Borderlands 4. So I'll be cracking on with that shortly.
Nice.
So yeah, but on the topic of games, I don't know if we discussed that very much on this podcast, but on the topic of games, I do have a bone to pick with not so much you, or maybe you a little bit, but more Joey and the Game Club pod boys. So
that's fine, because I've realised I've got a bone to pick with Joey and you.
Oh, good. Let's pick bones.
Let's pick.
Let's bone picking. That'll be fun.
Be prepared, everyone. This could be the final episode in your pod feed again. So.
Never giving up. I'll be here when I'm 80. You'll be talking to a skeleton.
Go on, let's have it.
So there's two things on his on the episode I listened to. Thanks, I hate it, on Mass Effect 2, which was a fantastic episode, by the way. And if you get the opportunity, please go and listen to it. It's a brilliant episode, as always, from the guys over at GCP and our very own beloved Danny P talking shit about Mass Effect. No, they're not. They're dissecting Mass Effect 2 and telling everyone how great it is and trying to see if he can get Joey in particular to like it. But there's something very early on in that podcast that Joey said that I took umbrage to. So it wasn't about Mass Effect, actually. It was about Bluey. Right?
Right.
So Joey talks about Bluey and he says he won't hear a bad word said about Bluey. And to that, I say, fuck off. Right? Bluey, there's a serious problem with Bluey. And that is the fact that Bluey makes out that parents are something they are not. There is no parent on this fucking earth that can live up to the standards that they're set by that program. And I lived through this while in like 3 or 4 years ago when it first came out, of my kids wanting me to be like Bluey's dad. And I'm like Bandit. And I'm like, it's not happening. I'm not getting up and playing fucking horsey all day, or statues, or bus rides, or not happening.
So I'm going to say something. So those are the views of half of Gaming Views. Josh from Talking Smacks, I know he watches and listens. That was all Dan H. That's not
I
me.
love Bluey, but that is. I hope Josh has got kids, because he'll understand what I'm saying if he's got kids. If he hasn't, fuck Bluey.
But yeah, no, I mean, I don't, and so I haven't seen it, so I know nothing about it. But at least it wasn't anything.
Watch it. It's a brilliant program.
Well, at least it wasn't anything Mass Effect related. So.
No. Oh, there is something Mass Effect related, Dan.
Oh, what in this? Oh, go on.
Yeah. This is my second bone.
Okay, right.
That fucking quiz, that was a joke, right? First of all, it's multi-choice. But, sorry, Lord of Mass Effect.
I got the answers, though. No, but I got the answers anyway.
Oh, right. Sorry, you got the answers to this is the hard one that ChatGPT came up. Hard?
I didn't need
Those questions were not hard, Danny.
Well, look, all right.
The first question, what organisation? That was in my quiz.
All right. Look, I'll say now, at a time of your choosing, you spring another pop quiz Mass Effect on me any time you want.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, Dan.
Shit.
I haven't. So hang on a minute, right? So multi-choice questions. Secondly, he said it's hard, right? And thirdly, the answer, there were only 5 questions, people, by the way. The answer to one of the other questions, so 20% of the answers you'd already given.
It's easy. It's only easy if you know the answers.
It was so ridiculous.
It's only easy if you know the answers.
That question about what dictates the survivors at the end of it, you'd already given the answer on the previous question. It was one of the multiple choice. I'm not having it. I'm not having it. Joey, like you were wrong.
I was going to say, it still feels like that's with Joey, not me. So,
it's definitely with Joey. It's not you. You were just like, oh yeah, no, I am the king, because they were really hard, those questions.
All right, the bones I've got to pick partly is with you. So we played Baldur's Gate 3 last night, we said, and there was one bit towards the end.
Some of us don't just jump over enemies instead of using our action points to punch them, Dan. I mean, I'm just saying.
All right, let's say early on. So this was my first, I played it for 10 minutes. Or hit
one of their team members instead
I was going to say, I played it for 10 minutes before, but this is the first time playing it. So I think in the first 10 minutes, I hit Joey instead of the enemy. But I honestly didn't know what I was doing.
Tell them about the jump.
Well, you were then telling me about the action. I think I'd gone up to an enemy and I'd done the main offence. So then you said, oh, you've got bonus actions, anything orange, you could do it. So I don't know what I did, but then I think I did jump and I jumped over the enemy.
Leapfrogged an enemy. Well,
it was getting the element of surprise. But then but towards the end of the playthrough, I was dead in the game.
You were not just dead.
No, but this is the thing. So Joey first, right, liquidates me, right? And I've spoken
liquidation was just
It's
hilarious.
literally, he liquidated me. He comes up to my corpse and just liquidates me. And so I spoke to him today and he goes, I just wanted to see, I'd never used that before. I wanted to see what it did. It liquidates me. And then about 10 minutes after I'm finally revived, I mean, you lot all go back to camp and I'm hearing you talk. I get revived and you say, oh, if you want to take the gold, I took it off you when you were dead. You'd stolen my gold when I was dead.
I was going to buy you something nice. I don't know what the problem is.
You're going to take me for dinner.
I was going to take you for dinner. I was going to buy you something nice. Have a bowl of liquefied Dan soup and it was going to be fine.
But this is what co-op's all about. But yeah, me jumping over an enemy is...
It was a wondrous occasion last night. There was so many funny, as there always are with those guys. It was deep, throbbing joy. I really enjoyed it. Right. We're going to listen to the guy with the best and most confusing name for me in podcasting because I always think it's Satsumas when we talk about him. So we're going to listen to a little ad from our friend from the north, Chatsunami, and Pandalorians. You already know about this, so enjoy.
Welcome to Chatsunami, a variety podcast that discusses topics from gaming and films to anime and general interests.
Previously on Chatsunami, we've analysed what makes a good horror game, conducted a retrospective on Pierce Brosnan's run as James Bond, and listened to us take deep dives into both the Sonic and Halo franchises.
Also, if you're an anime fan, then don't forget to check us out on our sub-series, Chatsunani, where we dive into the world of anime. So far, we've reviewed things like Death Note, Princess Mononoke, and the hit Beyblade series.
If that sounds like your cup of tea, then you can check us out on Spotify, iTunes, and all good podcast apps.
As always, stay safe,
stay awesome, and most importantly,
stay hydrated.
Right, Dan. Multiplayer. The many facets of multiplayer, the many things that both we have enjoyed and played, and the research I've done on the side, to be fair. Yeah. And your existential crisis. Do we want to talk about your existential crisis first?
Well, because I thought when we first talked about this idea, we would talk about like the evolution of co-op, weren't we? And cooperative.
Yes, I confused the topic by switching co-op out for multiplayer.
Yeah, well, this is it. So my existential crisis, as it were, was I was thinking, I've probably not really played much in the way of co-op games, and it's mainly been multiplayer games. But now it feels like it's perfect. What's the word?
And now you know why I did what I did, because I have the same problem. I have said on this podcast many times before, I have no friends. Co-op implies cooperation. You need two people. I don't have two people.
But then that also then got me thinking, it was one of those, where I was walking to the train
Memphis?
the other day. Yeah. Like a character from a cartoon or something where they've got like the imagination bubble above their head. I felt like that's what I was, because you've then got co-op, but a lot of the games that I've probably played in the past, I wouldn't really class as co-op. So, tell you what, let's do an interesting conversation here then. So like Gears of War.
Change, wouldn't it? Let's do that. Listeners might like
we
that.
really know how to sell ourselves on this pod, don't we? Like Gears of War, it's two people in the game, but I don't really think that's a cooperative game. It's
but I think it depends what it comes to. A lot of games, both past and present, have had this dilemma about how do you keep people enthused and attracted to a game past the single player campaign or the co-op campaign, Halo being one of them, and they expanded with multiplayer in Halo 2 and went further, and Gears of War was the same, and I think post Halo, everything was a bit of a tack on. They were like, oh, we'll just add on multiplayer. And it went into games that it never belonged in the first place.
Yeah.
But, that I think the main game, the campaign, is absolutely co-op, right? Horde mode.
Horde mode, but what I'm saying though is when is co-op, because sometimes the game will be classed as having online co-op mode, but it's just say two of you going through the campaign and they'll just throw more enemies at you.
Yeah.
So when is that co-op, or is Split Fiction It Takes Two a way out? To me, that's co-op, true co-op, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's a blend of both, right? I mean, I was going to say Split Fiction or just the two of us, or any of those sort of, It Takes Two, sorry, any of those sort of games are truly built around the mechanism, because you have to one of you has to be doing something while the other one does, or fail drastically at it, which we do quite a lot. But the other one, I guess it is cooperative in the fact that you're not going, actually, I'm going to go over to the locus and just shoot you instead, because friendly fire switched off all the time, so it isn't fair. It's no Helldivers. But Helldivers, fuck that, it's not cooperative. Because half the time, people are pressing the button on your bomb on your back and running away.
All I hear is, where's Dan gone now? Because I'm like, oh, something over there.
Tiny.
But it was kind of like Baldur's Gate 3 last night. Technically, you can all go off and do your own thing. And you are all going off and doing your own thing, aren't you?
That game is a wonder of how they built that. How they built that engine to allow for so many various outcomes and ways of dealing with a situation is just insane. Like last night when Joe was saying to you, well, just shut the door and lock it and they can't get in. Oh yeah, I'll do that then. Yeah.
But I guess what I'm saying is I'm not
dead near them, so I mean, I'm not sure it was the best plot.
And I was a puddle of blood. But I guess what I'm trying to say is the more I thought about this, the more I realised that the layers or the levels there are of co-op. So yes, you've got your straight through, like your early Halos and sort of Gears of War, where you're just going through the same levels, to what we see now in terms of what we would say like the true interactive co-op games. I think is great to see that there are many flavours to this.
Oh, tons, and we'll go through. There's so many different elements that make up, and the history of multiplayer. It doesn't sound so much like an existential crisis. I'm just turning into a counselling session. It sounds more like an education piece. Dan's educating himself and realised what's there.
Well, it's more. I was initially worried I was going to be talking more about online games, multiplayer games, and co-op, and then you just called this co-op, so it's online, so it's perfect.
Sorry, yeah. I quite often get very confused. Mainly because of age and ADHD. So I just don't really know what's going on half the time. So if I say we're going to do something, it will change.
It also, did make me remember that the fights that I want to do come on to after. But can you remember what you think your first co-op game was? Because I think I now remember what mine was, and it was an arcade game, weirdly.
Oh, if we're going back like co-op as in Gauntlet. All day long.
Oh, Gauntlet, yeah, good one.
That would have been my first one. Well, Gauntlet or Pac-Man, but Pac-Man was competitive, not co-op. Was you were playing against all Space Invaders, you were playing against the other person, whereas co-op, it would have been Gauntlet.
Yeah, Gauntlet, it's a good show. It could have been, but the one that really jumped to mind for me was Double Dragon.
Yeah, that was a bit after Gauntlet, wasn't it? But yeah.
Yeah, because that was, I remember
Lee
that
brothers?
being...
I can't remember what it was. What were their names?
Yeah, I think it's Lee. I'm sure one's called Bobby, I think.
Bobby Lee.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure. We'll check. Someone tell us. But yeah, I think that was the first one because you played as the brothers, and that had a twist ending. Probably also my first game where there was a twist ending. If I've not made it up.
Good ones like Final Fight and all of those classics. We're doing what we do, but yeah. Well, look, as we're talking about arcades, let's start at the start, right? So when we talk about multiplayer, really, we're going back to the heady days of 1972, which is even before my history begins. Which is, I know it's hard to believe, but it is. Yeah, about 4 years before I was born, Pong and Tank were, the hits in the arcades that drove people. Into that kind of co-op space, and therefore, you were competing against someone else with a little ping pong ball, I guess. Or it was a square, it wasn't a ball, on a screen. So, that was kind of where multiplayer, and there was some stuff before that, right? But I haven't gone into it because one, it's really fucking boring. And it's like in research centers and they've created, oscillators that do, and I know there's this stuff because I did research, but I wanted to start with people.
First one I had. Pong doubles.
Pong doubles slightly later. So Pong doubles came up and that was a year later in 73.
Yeah.
So you had Pong, the original one. Yeah. Pong doubles, and around about the same time, Space Invaders, which again, was on the table cabinet, you had two people playing against each other for high scores. So, multiplayer. Yeah. I mean, more than one player.
Yeah.
So, if we go by the true definition of the term, There was also around that time a game I'm not familiar with, so on Fire Truck, which was a similar thing.
Oh God, yes, I played that on one of the, these compilations they've put together. They love a retro. Yeah, that was a fun, bizarre game if I remember right, and I can't remember why it was bizarre. So I'm sure you'll find a video, but I'm sure you control part of the fire truck or something. Anyway,
it was when I was reading about it, it was described as a true cooperative. You needed to both work together to do the thing rather than it being a competitive.
Yeah.
He just looked really surprised at what I said, but then I realised it was you're right. And then, not long after, a little bit after, you did get the kind of the 4-player cabinets start coming out, which were things like Gauntlet, Quartet,
Turtles, Simpsons.
So Konami went nuts, right? Turtles Through Time, and then you had Avengers X-Men, you had Simpsons, you had just a whole host of these, let's be clear, phenomenal arcade cabinets. They were, everyone was a blinder, right? They were all the same thing with a different skin, but they were all brilliant.
Well, if it's slightly different, do you remember Super Sprint? I loved that at the arcade. That was
the wheels.
The top-down racing game. Because that one, you could go around the corners. You could literally just spin the wheel, just spin it and you slide around. It was so
good.
Yeah.
I remember playing that on. We're going to digress, but on the Atari ST, there was a really great version of it as well. And that just remember the Little S track where you went underneath one, and it was so simple, and yet it was like sensible soccer. It was so simple and yet so glorious to play.
Pick up the wrenches, couldn't you? There were shortcuts that would open up that could kill you. Yeah. Great
game mechanics.
Yeah.
We've done that thing, haven't we? We've kind of gone, subscribe and watch us on YouTube because there's a bunch of stuff up there and we're crap at housekeeping. I'll do it again at the end. Anyway, yes. So I just don't know why I just thought of that, but I did. Brain went. So arcades were big into kind of co-op, but this, it was all centralized around a single cabinet. People playing or a table. Because there was no networking, there was no, the internet was a glimpse in someone's eye, so all of these things were happening in these arcades or at fairgrounds where, people would normally congregate and play together. So, and the 10p stacked up on a cabinet and, waiting your turn to play and all those things. And you had, and it's not just the 4-player cabinets. You've got your Street Fighters, your, like we said, the Double Dragons, the Final Fights, the Mortal Kombats. All of these were competitive multiplayer games, and yet we don't think of them as that. They're just a fighter.
Yeah. Because the brain just starts going. Because I remember again another one. Do you remember the Daytona race game? Much later on, but I think some arcades you could get up to 10 cabinets. I think linked. Which if you think about it, you get a group of mates. And some other randoms come out, and you've got.
MotoGP, all of those had all of these kind of cabinets that started springing to life, and they were, I'm assuming they were all on some sort of closed circuit rather than it wouldn't be a, in the later days of, when the internet was a thing, obviously it all changed, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But arcades were where it truly started, and where I remember having a bunch of fun on the cabinets like that, just. Even if it wasn't a true multiplayer cabinet, I've spoken before about there was a local video game shop we used to go down and just haunt after school. And they had a R-Type cabinet in there. We would just literally queue up to play and beat each other's high scores.
Yeah.
So you weren't playing cooperatively but you were playing competitively, just not at the same time. And that was, I guess it's still kind of multiplayer, right?
Yeah. The other thing about those 4-player fighter games is I think you got to remember that, so people who hadn't seen them, these machines were massive, weren't they? Oh, as in they were really big. So
day long.
They looked good because, say you've got the Simpsons one, you've got all the characters painted over and plastered over it. And, you couldn't stand necessarily central to it.
No, you were on an edge, weren't you? Yeah.
So you would have random people come up and join you in the game and just take part sometimes, which, if you think about it now, you'd probably, why are you joining my game? Get out.
But it happens now, right?
Yeah.
You have an open network when you're playing a multiplayer game. Some random 12-year-old comes in and starts abusing you.
Yeah. Well, in
Which
those
has
games,
happened.
they had to help you, which was fine.
Yeah, that's true. They didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Friendly fire turned off.
Yeah.
Thank fuck. So, moving past, but at a very similar time. So, late 70s, early 80s, we got the birth of network gaming. Again, pre-internet. But this is where we start looking at things like MUD. So, are you familiar with MUD?
Not sure.
So MUD was something that was, what's the best way to describe it? It was kind of a text-based world, based in and around Dungeons and Dragons, copyright pending, but with kind of chat and interactive fiction built in. And it was a spin-off from an academic network, ARPANET or Janet or similar to that. And so it was built for students, and there was a running joke. So MUD stood for multi-user dungeons. But there was a running joke that it actually stood for multi-undergrad destroyers because of the number of students who got invested and like missed lessons and stuff playing it. So it was this perpetual world that was built on an academic network that allowed people to interact together and build a community in a text-based format. So there was no visuals, there was no nothing. It was just, and I do remember vaguely, even as late as around the early 90s, joining a MUD. Like they became a thing, everything, it was the colloquial term for this stuff that happened, and joining a MUD that was a D&D. Because I mentioned I used to play D&D a lot back in the day, and then I kind of fell out of love with it. But around the time I fell out of love with it, I kind of started getting interested in games and started, I joined the MUD community that was, kind of set in this world where you're fighting dragons but it was, I can't imagine the amount of admin that must have gone into creating these stories and, all of these tales and things that were built around it. But they were amazing. Well, but they were built on a network. So this is kind of the start of the introduction of these things that started coming. They weren't commercial. They weren't commercialized. They were experimental in nature. And quite often referred to as kind of the proto-social media, because you were, like your Facebooks and, oh God, sorry, not Facebooks, TikToks. I'm not old. Your TikToks.
The TikTok. Yeah.
The TikTok and the Instagram
the Facebook,
of their day, but built around a centralized hub of these kind of fantasy worlds.
Yeah.
But again, on a network, because PCs weren't hugely common in people's houses, but these things were around for decades. I think that they're still around now. And people still enjoy them, and people, still log into them and do their quests, but it's all text-based. And I don't know how I feel about that now, because I'm like, there's so many rich and engrossing worlds you can get involved with on a multiplayer.
What the appeal of the MUD would be?
Yeah, I suppose it's like picking up a good book, isn't it?
Your
mind generates that.
Yeah.
I guess that's it, isn't it?
Is it more to generate the fantasy yourself rather than see what a developer's idea of that fantasy is? Yeah. I
think that's kind of, for me, I think that would be the thing that made me want to go back to do that. But as I've said, I ain't got time doing that anyway. I can't play the games I bloody got. So it was an interesting time because, as I said, pre-internet, pre any of that kind of stuff that we just take for granted now as being part and parcel of life, Wi-Fi, broadband.
Well, I said to you at the time, sorry, like when my mate would come round to mine, he would bring his PlayStation round. Yeah. And I would often go around to his and I'd bring my Amiga 1000. I'd have to pack up with CRT monitor and everything. So I was putting a CRT monitor, a big base unit, the memory pack, plus 2 joysticks because he didn't have a PC. So that was the local gaming then.
Well, that is a seamless segue, Dan, and I thank you very much for that wonderful non-tenuous link into what we're going to talk about now, which is really about connecting the masses. This is the 90s. So this is where we get into a point that is a pivotal decade in the rise of personal computers and our favourite, and I will ask you to do an impression in a minute, of the dial-up internet.
Wee, 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 wee.
I'm not going to do that.
No, thank you. Just go back a few episodes.
But ironically, being this kind of opening this Pandora's box of where we are now, it was also the biggest barrier to online play because the speeds were fucking appalling. You couldn't actually play online with it in the early days because the speeds were so slow. So whilst the revolution around home PCs and creating these things was happening, things were slow. And the networks that they created were all peer to peer. So, there was no centralized server. There was none of that stuff was happening. That hadn't even been invented. So it was all peer to peer stuff if it was happening at all. And the real kind of what that meant prior to certain games coming about was the cultural phenomenon that was the LAN party.
See, I unfortunately never kind of had the fortune to experience one of those.
Oh, mate, you missed a trick. I mean, well, you did in a way with your PlayStation. It applies to all sorts, right? You did.
I guess so. In the sense I saw a picture weirdly that went the rounds on the socials this week. It was of a LAN party, but there's like people, because they were limited for space, like some guy, they duct taped him to the piping in the ceiling and he was like facing down playing World of Warcraft or whatever. He was literally, duct taped to the ceiling.
I need that picture because that's just phenomenal. No, I on several occasions for many summers, me and mainly three of our friends, but occasionally there were a couple of others that joined us, would go and play, have LAN parties of all sorts, like Command and Conquer and all sorts. And invariably there would be somewhere would be at our mate Graham's house, and there'd be, him and five of us. So six lads, just glued to a CRT monitor with our PCs, literally lugging them around, to get there. And I think we must have been maybe 16, 17. So one of us probably had a car and would literally taxi around. I think it was my mate G with his God, what were they called? Austin Allegro. So he would drive around and pick us all up in this putrid coloured car, and they'd have a host of PCs in the back of it, and then you'd whack them all. We'd have a dining table with them on, and you'd LAN up, and then that'd be it for the weekend. You'd be lucky if you remembered to eat and drink. It was just all consuming. But it was huge amounts of fun. I think that started to change, kind of early night. I mean, it persisted, but you started seeing with dial-up modem and dial-up internet and things like that coming in, and then Doom, which came in '93, was really, opened that, approach to a different way, and certainly first-person shooters as well, brought it to the mass market, and it was huge. Like, you couldn't move for talk of Doom at the time, whether it was negative or positive, whether it was, it's bad people running around shooting people. They look a bit like humans. They're demons, but, the news stories that we've covered in a previous episode, or whether it was, great for gamers because it opened up a whole new avenue for them to explore and for games to be built around, which, we all know where that ended up today, but also coined the term, which probably didn't help them in the press, is deathmatch.
Yeah. If you think about it, yeah.
Doom was just massive. And it was, I think it was 4 players max on Doom. But then the guys at id created Quake.
Yes.
Which again shifted the game, particularly around 96 when the version of Quake came out, that I think you'd have 12 players, but also introduced game joining. So rather than trying to do everything up front, you could join a game. And bots.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember which one of them it was. One thing I did remember once was going to me and my mate when we were coming up to our uni exams. We went to like the the uni, the library centre. They called it the LRC.
I'm going to pretend at this moment in time I went to university. Okay. Sure, I know what you're talking about.
And it was late night because we thought let's go be quiet. We'd do a few hours studying there. Going there and seeing, I don't know how they did it, but on the computers there, a group of people playing, it was either Doom or Quake. They'd linked it up on their computers, and I was thinking, great, so we've come here to get away and have a bit of silence. And they're playing Doom on.
Quake was a phenomenon. So when the ability to play more than kind of 6 players, or whatever it was, when 12 players came out, I used to work at ICL, as it was then. It's Fujitsu Iliyama now, and I think I've said before on here, we used to do support for a lot of, at the time, It was called the Sorbus desk. It was essentially the first home PC support desk. But we used to have a lot of contracts with game publishers, and we do support for them because at the time there were tip helplines and things like that at a premium rate. You could phone up, and one of them was Activision, who were publishing id titles at the time. So when they released Quake, we were asked to play it, to get familiar with it and help people set up their network and all that sort of thing. And so there was an office that we were in, which was in Stevenage, and one that was in Kent in Footscray. So it was very common, almost of an evening every evening, for there to be an ongoing battle between 6 people in Footscray and 6 people in Stevenage, basically just having Quake wars. And I became so good at that game. And I just remember at the time, Prodigy were huge, and the album Fat of the Land was like massive. And it was just, I think it was songs like Climatize and stuff like that I literally have headphones in on a little CD, you know, the CD Discman?
Yeah.
Listening to that while playing, just blitzing Quake and being really good at it.
But you know why I'm laughing here? For 2 things. One, the way you made it sound like, you know, they asked us to play Quake and do. I was thinking, what a tough job you had there.
Legal requirements, I think I have to say that.
Yeah, what a tough job. But no, I'm laughing because I remember playing, and I'm going to summon that game again. Me and a mate, he would come around to mine, I'd go to his, we'd play a lot of Football Manager.
Is it Mass Effect?
No, Football Manager at the time. No, it's
great stoppage, yeah.
And I was, I'd play like, and this is going to sound so bizarre, but you know the song, the artiste that got me in the zone and actually won a lot of games in a row? Enya.
You know, you said this might be the final podcast that we do.
Now, bear in mind, you know, like
there are straws that break camels' backs, Dan.
You know, it's funny. So I
was there Orinoco flow? It got you possibly in the flow. I you know, kind of, I grew up with like the whole grunge scene, the indie scene. I loved the Prodigy, the rave. Where the fuck are you putting Enya from?
Troops. I don't know. It was the CD there. I put it in. Maybe I needed to calm down. Maybe that was because you've seen how, you know,
it was number one for a very long time. If you mention Bryan Adams and fucking wet, I'm never those.
No, but you've played some online games with me now. You can see how wound up I do actually get. So maybe it was what needed to calm me down during those games.
You do. You are. I have to say, we're talking about multiplayer. You are a Jekyll and Hyde. Like, Dan is lovely, Dan. Like, this is the Dan that you're seeing now. This is Dan you get, right? This is the mild-mannered, calm-natured. Like, he becomes a raging id monster when you get on multiplayer. And the language that comes out of that, mate, he's a potty mouth. Like,
not proud of it.
Explain yourself, Polcaro.
I don't know what it is. I can't remember if you were on that night or what, but there was one night, the variations of the F word I said within about 30 seconds and all strung together.
I think that was the one I couldn't join. That was the Helldivers I couldn't join. But you've displayed adequate similarities on every other podcast. You were quite blue last night, to be fair.
Well,
on Baldur's Gate.
So funny. So maybe that's what it is, and I don't know what it is. I do know what it is. We're starting to get into the psychology now of gaming. Do you know what it often can be? Is one, you don't want to lose to someone, of course you don't. But it's more so when it's cooperative gaming. If I feel like I've been, say, like the worst player on that team, it really winds me up.
You know what? This comes back to us complimenting each other, right? I couldn't give a fuck. I'm genuinely, I'm the least competitive person. People think I'm really competitive. I am not in the slightest. I told you before my Keanu Reeves thing, right? If you tell me 2 + 2 is 5, sure. All right. If that's what you think, go for it. I'm the same with that. I get frustrated with Joey putting us on the hardest ever level of Helldivers 2 with a million Terminators coming at us at once and going, just run into that minefield. That is frustration, but it's not because I'm losing. And if I'm the last person, and you can see I don't mind because I'm always the last person on the team with the lowest score, I'm all right.
But see, I'm not normally a competitive person, not in life generally, but
put a game on.
Yeah, put a game on. That changes. And like I said, and I don't want to be the worst person on the team either, because that really gets me angry. So it's like...
right, back on topic. One game I can guarantee you played around that time would have been Unreal in some shape or format.
Yeah, I think it was Quake, right? I definitely...
Well, Unreal was like another, an Unreal Championship that became.
Oh, sorry, the Unreal Championship. Sorry, yes.
So Unreal Championship, you had Unreal, which I think they had a single player.
Just talk about the engine.
Yeah. No, not yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, the video game Unreal, which is what spawned the engine, is now more popular than the game ever was, and has kind of resigned to the annals of history, which no one remembers it. But yeah, Unreal Championship, and they tried to bring it back a couple of years ago, I think, and it didn't do so well. But I think that continued until competitive, and I'm not. Dan might bring up competitive esports around this whole thing, because I kind of was a rabbit hole I didn't want to go to, and felt there was a much broader episode on that.
Yeah, so, I think we can do a separate episode on that. Yeah.
But interestingly, as internet speeds improved, so moving past kind of first person shooters and that kind of P2P, peer-to-peer stuff, and as the technology improved, what you started getting was those games that took advantage of that. And I'm talking specifically about things like Ultima Online, which was not that far behind. It was only kind of a year later, following up from kind of Unreal. And this is where they created a very complex world and kind of started making good the MMO boom.
Yeah.
Massive multiplayer online stuff. And I never played Ultima Online. I have to admit, it was never a thing that caught my attention. But I don't know if you did or knew anyone that played it.
No, I just remember it being just a massive game, and even sort of to this day, kind of well respected in terms of how it was developed. Yeah. Were you into the MMOs?
I was. But that didn't start until a little bit later. You're getting so good.
Sorry,
I mean, you're nailing it tonight, right? And I'm going to say it now. You are nailing it. So my next point around this stuff was around the 2000s, which I've termed the broadband boom, mainly because it's that thing. What's it with the BBB? Like Peter Park. I can't remember the name for it. Anyway, it's that thing. So this is where, alliteration. Thanks for that.
Okay.
Where you got the widespread adoption of broadband across countries, right? Certainly first world countries, you got this proliferation of broadband in one way, shape or form. Oh my God, I can get 20 meg.
Well, I've got a memory, and I meant to say earlier, I've got a memory also when we were on dial-up. Wasn't there something along the lines of, because obviously that was billed, because it was a phone line, it was billed per minute like phone. Wasn't there certain things like you could get packages like AOL, maybe, where you got an hour, or you had an hour at the time, then you had to disconnect and reconnect, I think. I'm sure that brings something in my mind about you get a certain amount free, or you'd have to reconnect.
Yeah. And there was, I've got a blinding story about being overcharged for WAP on mobiles when they first started. And Vodafone at the time, Orange, I think it was, Orange Network at the time, tried to charge me over £1,000 for internet connections, and I ended up having to write to the CEO to get a response. And they looked into it, and it was a technical issue their side, where it kept trying to connect into their thing. Yeah, and because when I got the bill, I literally got a stack of pages because they were paper bills. And it would just be 1 second, and it was just, and the whole thing was just charged.
All you would do nowadays is you'd have a sad picture of yourself in the media and say you've been hacked. That's what you would do.
Yeah, my kids spent it. That's what I'd say. My kids spent my money. They spent it on V-Bucks.
You got to have the glum face, though. That's the thing. Yeah, there you go.
V-Bucks.
Oh, what's that?
I can't do glum. Not when I'm podcasting. That's my default. The rest of the year.
Yeah.
Here's the only time I smile. Right. Broadband. So what it also did was a critical shift in the architecture that was used. So we talked previously about P2P, which is kind of like peer-to-peer, and it moved us to this client-server model, which is more traditional what we see now, right? So you have a server, and clients connect to the server and get a response. That's what we have now, rather than a direct. Because P2P, let's be honest, was really fucking easy to cheat at. Maybe not sometimes intentionally, because as the host, well, I've got zero lag. I don't know what your problem is.
Yeah.
I'm all right. And yet everyone else is like, yeah, but you've shot everybody. It's like one of those movies where the guy, like, there's a standoff and he shoots everyone and you don't even see him draw his guns. That's what it was like. It's like, but how did I die? Oh, sorry, it was your lag. But that changed dramatically with the advent of broadband. So, we actually got client server and we got a lot of games started ramping up. And you asked me, was I into MMORPGs? And the answer is one. And that was World of Warcraft. So my mate at the time, PJ, bought World of Warcraft, and he disappeared for about 3 weeks. I genuinely didn't hear from him, right? And we were, God, what was World of Warcraft? I think I had a date here somewhere on it, but 2004, right? So I had kids at that time, and my God, kids at that time. But I was still friends. But he disappeared for about 3 weeks, and I was like, I don't know what's happened to him. No, he's not responding to text or anything. Like, and when I finally caught up with him, he'd literally gone down this World of Warcraft rabbit hole. And I was like, fuck is it? Like, and he showed me, and it was like an epiphany. Sorry, you can do what? You can cook. You can craft things. You can collect. I bought it, and I went down a 3-week rabbit hole. I didn't, I can tell you now, right? The server I joined on day one was Terralion, right? Why do I know that? Like, I don't remember.
It's weird what we keep. It's
so weird. Yeah. And I remember the day of launch of that thing. I guess I always kept a weathered eye on video games. And I remember the launch around that. And it just, people were not prepared for, the 24-hour queues to get into the game.
Massive. Yeah, everything. It was, and
massive multiplayer online.
Yeah. You know how big it is as well, because it snuck its way into like TV, into pop culture. And that's a sign of, when gaming does that. I mean, now it's more common than ever, right? But sort of back in the day, for it to get into like TVs or films or things like that, it had to be a big phenomenon, right? It was,
yeah, totally. And there was no, what people have got to remember, right? This is before things like Xbox Live and things like that made game chat popular. So there was none of that. So you're literally dialing in on Skype or whatever, chatting with someone. And there were certain services that started spinning up around this time that allowed you to have this conversation. I think Twitch was a little bit later. But you didn't have that instant connection. So if you wanted to play, you were kind of playing, and a lot of it was just waving at people or typing in a chat, right? And who's got time to type in the chat when you're fighting the horde? So, but it was built around this. It's an epic world that just has continued to be built on, the engine's refreshed and all these sorts of things, and it's that age old tale of good versus bad, and it's fantasy, and it's all span off from an original kind of multiplayer game, which was Warcraft. And there's created this whole universe of, not just the future-based stuff, but the all from a tabletop. And it's like, it's insane. And like you say, it's entered pop culture. There's a movie, I think it was, what's his name? David Bowie's son, Duncan Jones, that that directed the movie. But you couldn't turn on a channel without seeing something about it.
Yeah. See, and I can't remember if we spoke about it with David or maybe Ian Lee. I can't remember. I am so glad I never got into that, because I know, like you, I would have, because I have quite an addictive personality to certain things like gaming, and I've spent a lot of time gaming, and I know for a fact that would have absorbed me. Now, I that's not to say I don't like it, and I wish I had got into it, but I don't know where I'd be now if I'd have bought that.
You'd be swearing all the time, Dan.
Yeah. I mean, I did play, I don't know if it's on your list, but I did play a different, I played Guild Wars, which was...
similar, yeah.
And I really got into that, but, it was never World of Warcraft, right? But it was quite a popular one.
It was very popular, yeah. I mean, it was certainly second fiddle to something like World of Warcraft, which just, and I went down a rabbit hole for a number of weeks, but I played it religiously, like for years, for at least 2.5 years. My problem was I could never, because of young kids and job, and I could never find time to do the kind of the runs and join a raid, and so I got left behind, in terms of end gear and things like that. I couldn't keep up. And so I ended up kind of being left up in the sad man going, I've got no friends, which transpires is true in real life. But it was just, so it was a little bit frustrating from that respect, because I just ended up having to do things that, again, were an advent of this generation, which was things like farming, grinding, and leads into a little bit of the darker side of this kind of stuff, which is, building these, and it was, in fairness, a lot of the, it came from China quite a lot, which was that, farming and building, this continual farming of stuff and selling of stuff that, they've done a really good job of clamping down on. But in the early days, gold farming and things like that were just horrendous, and you could pay someone to do this stuff.
Yeah, I remember those stories. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were everywhere. And this is what I mean. It's a little bit of the dark side of it. But then even worse is where, I don't know if you remember some of this, like stories coming out of Japan of people who were playing and so obsessed with it that they ended up dying of exhaustion or forgetting.
It's like in the internet cafes and things like that. They were forgetting to eat and drink. It's just exhaustion.
I mean, it was a great game, but I'd never have forgotten to eat. I mean, it's like
food, I think, is probably my number one passion.
That's those hierarchy of need. It was there.
But that's the thing. Look, we've all got that game or that moment in time where we've looked at our phone and said, all right, it's 9:30, half hour, and I'll be done. And you look and it's 2 a.m. We've all done that.
Was part of Warcraft, yeah.
But it's like, those stories, it's just so sad, isn't it? Because you're like, at what point are you ignoring the signs as you're playing? But anyway, it's totally. They were incredible.
It was a phenomenon. And I think I stopped playing when, I think the last expansion I got was the Lich King. And then, I kind of got that one. And then I think that was like expansion 2 or 3. So it would have been about 3 years that I played it for. And then kind of fell out of love with it or had other shit to do. Or, so I was massively invested in that. And that could have only happened with Broadband and how we started playing as a culture. And it was an experience. And it was a glorious experience, right? Like, those heady days, it was a wonderful, and it was a joy to play as a game. It was a bit slow and clunky.
But it was true. I mean, the clue is in the title where, we're not going to joke about it, but it was a true MMO. Right? It was where you had so many people just congregate online, right? And generally, it was probably, from what I used to remember, it was fairly well sort of intentioned, sort of like, well-mannered people.
Yeah.
But it's like, that was when you saw this hobby of ours as thinking, this is where it's going. This is what it can do. Do you know what I mean? It's really bringing,
totally.
To the masses.
But it did, like I said earlier, it did bring about some of those things like level grinding, end game gear, which is now big in, a lot of focus, certainly for even single player stuff, but certainly single player with multiplayer elements or multiplayers in themselves have this whole thing around end game. There has to be an end game. There has to be something after the game that keeps me hooked and keeps me playing. And a lot of the time, this stuff becomes heavily monetized, which again, we've spoken about before. But those kind of practices, which, at the time weren't as unscrupulous, but you also had other things that were introduced that are, even last night we spent a bit of while doing it, deep character customization.
Yeah, that was worrying me about how long we'd be in that. I think you said that the whole session would probably just be that,
We'll just be creating our characters. I just went, what's the stock one? Make it bigger. That one, that'll do. But everyone else was like, I'm just going to tweak these and this. And especially Alex is like, want to get it right.
And I'm probably jumping ahead, so we don't have to talk about it. But I guess these have now the evolution. I mean, obviously Warcraft's still about, right? World of Warcraft, but I guess the equivalent nowadays is the live service games, right? I guess
you have nailed it, and we will get there because that does become a big part of the thing that we will talk about. In fact, you've done it again. I mean, you've gloriously led us into kind of modern day, like the 2010s to the present, which is the more modern day, right? Broadband's hit a peak thing, and yes, it's still getting faster and faster. But from a standpoint where games film, there's an interesting point that I failed to mention, right? And we should talk about. So back in kind of the early 2000s, you did have and I love your picture there, by the way. You're getting better at drawing. I think you're going to classes. You do have a couch, right? Representative of couch co-op. And what I hadn't put two and two together with was that couch co-op died a death almost. You know, I said the other day, you know, Gears of War's got couch co-op. Who does that anymore? The reason it died, do you know why it died away?
Is it because we get older? And
it's not. That is why most things fail these days, especially late nights, toilet visits.
Well, no, I was thinking about this because as you were talking, earlier, it's like I was thinking a lot of the games before, when I was a kid, before online and multiplayer came about, it was like my cousin, he was a year older than me, so I would go around to his and we'd play games. He'd come around to mine, we'd play games. But then as you get older, what I mean by that is, so he'd go to uni, I go to uni, or he gets married, I get married. You meet your other friends, etc. You can't play that co-op anymore. So the beauty of online co-op is, it's a lot less personal in the sense of it's online with someone on the other side of the world, but at least you've got that person that you can then do the co-op. So I wondered if it was that, but no. No.
What? It's not. I mean, it's a lovely thought, but no. You're far too Mass Effecty. So you paragon.
Developing. They didn't want to develop split screen.
Well, weirdly, yeah. So it was actually graphical fidelity was outpacing hardware capability. So you had gorgeous graphics that you couldn't replicate twice on a screen. And so developers went, I'm not just going to sacrifice it. I like the pretty shiny. I'm going to make the pretty shiny, but sorry, if you want to play. And it almost it started dying out of death almost before, and it was just happenstance that the internet then started gathering pace and speed in terms of broadband, that it became, well, actually, I don't need to worry about it. I just need to generate it here and connect the dots with what that person's doing to there, not generate two exactly the same worlds as they do it. So the kind of death of couch co-op was just a byproduct of actually the hardware can't keep up with the graphical fidelity, which was really interesting. And again, I do research, see people, I do. It was really interesting for that to, be a point of fact.
Yeah.
So anyway, back to where we were. So that brings us up to kind of modern gaming, which is where we are now, where we find ourselves after the last kind of 10 or 15 years. So this is where gaming, we know how big it is. Right? We've said before, it's bigger than movies and music combined. It's just gigantic. And a lot of that is down to, this whole piece around online play and multiplayer. And a lot of that in turn is thanks to services like Twitch, Discord, where this has become, gaming has become more of a spectator sport. My kids would rather watch a video or watch someone streaming, playing a game than play it. And my brain cannot connect. Because I'm
isn't it? Yeah.
I want to play the game. I don't want to watch someone playing a game. The only time I will make a concession is if I'm playing Dark Souls or Elden Ring, so never, and I want to know how to do something I can't do. Not fighting, obviously, because I can't do that anyway.
But this is it, and I've been thinking about this a lot as well, because you and I have got double digits gaming experience between us, haven't we?
This is true.
So look, we've got
a polite way to put it.
How long have we been gaming? We've probably been gaming for 40 years each, right? If
easily, 40 years,
yeah, 40 years plus. So for us, gaming is that thing we do, right?
Yeah.
Whereas now, your kids are growing up with it being a form of entertainment as well. Do you know what I mean? So for us, it's hard to comprehend because gaming is what we do. We play. Yeah. I want to play the game. I don't want to watch it.
I mean, I'm not the world's biggest fan of games. Two of the biggest phenomena out there, which is Minecraft and Fortnite. I'm not a big fan of them, right? Hands up. They're not my cup of tea. Kudos to anyone who plays them and is brilliant at them. And I know there's this multi-billion-dollar industry built up around those two titles alone. Happy days. But I am overjoyed that my daughter is now finding fun playing Fortnite because it means she's not sitting watching idiots play Fortnite or Minecraft, these people, I'm not jealous that they're on YouTube and they make loads of money out of it. That's not what I'm saying. It is, I couldn't logically go, why would you go somewhere and watch? And we did talk about this with Ian Lee about, how it's become the spectator sport and how, it's an industry in itself and more people watch that and they watch television. I get it. And it's all great for those guys. Yeah, screw you. But I'm more proud that my daughter has chosen to pick up a controller and play it and be good at it than watching someone else play it.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I think it's just a generational thing, isn't it?
I think it must be.
Yeah.
Old person.
Yeah. I mean, not to you being old.
No. But look, what also comes with this kind of boom in the market and everything else is what naturally happens when these things happen. And that is one of the worst things to happen, but it was always going to happen, is the monetization side of things, right? Games as a service, loot boxes, live service games, whatever you want to call them. It's just a pox on gaming so far as I'm concerned, because I think it's brought some amazing studios and some real critical mass of what could have been phenomenal games into disrepute and eventually just crumbling. And that to me is the biggest travesty. Those things that we've all been excited about, and I've got a number of them I will reel off about them that have just, I don't know, they should have been amazing. And in some instances, there are examples of where before this monetization piece crept in, they were amazing. Right. So let's start with one that you probably know. I certainly played when it came out and was disappointing, and from a studio that should have known better. And that was Anthem.
Okay. Yeah.
So do you remember Anthem?
Yeah.
Right. So Anthem at one of the E3s had a run through, like a technical run through demo, and it looked fucking phenomenal. I mean, as a game, you would just jaw on the floor, right? And then it launched, and much the same as Destiny, it didn't quite meet up to what was shown on the screen. And a lot of games have been guilty of this. Killzone's another one. They do these great demo reels and they look phenomenal, and there's all this volumetric smoke and all these sort of things, but it never actually happened. But when it came out, because it was a live service game, or game as a service, whatever you want to call it, it was just, there was no content to support it. It was really poorly written and quite slack. The gameplay was just churn, like through and through. It was just repetitive and continual, and it had loads of buggy technical issues. And people will be shocked when I say it was built by Dan's favourite Mass Effect studio, BioWare. Sad times, right? I mean, because, and this is what I mean, they can create magic, right? Dragon Age, Dragon Age, Mass Effect, like just two examples of phenomenal cultural hits that studio have had. And then they have the opportunity to build something, but rather than building something that could have been still a brilliant online experience, if that's the way you chose to get, or even a great single player experience, they wanted to make money out of it. They wanted to commercialize it.
But that's what, David actually sort of summed up perfectly last week, that you see something be a success elsewhere and you think, yeah, I'll do it. Now, like you said, that's a studio who've been historically sort of created these beautifully intricate and sort of lore-ridden single-player games.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden sort of want to do Anthem. And not to say they can't, but, have they just looked at another similar game and said, yeah, all people want is an online shooter that we can then make them pay for skins and cosmetics?
It was almost the Destiny effect. That's what it felt like. Yeah. Destiny did this, but did it quite well and built a massive community. I mean, Destiny 1 was ridiculous. Destiny 2 was even bigger.
We actually played a lot of that, I remember.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
you just loved Destiny.
Yeah.
But then it just became overwhelming for me. I don't want to spend a game dealing with 12 different currencies and 400 different factions. And I want to go and shoot stuff in the head. Do you know what I mean? That's psycho. Another one that for me particularly was crushing was Avengers. Now, I don't know, did you play Avengers?
Yeah, because that first bit was amazing, wasn't it? The first bit where you're is it Miss Marvel?
Yeah.
And like if they could have just made it more of that, but then it just turned into generic online shooter, didn't it?
It was when you got to that first demo room where they showed you how to do stuff and you just went, oh no, I know what this is now. And then you just went through repeat missions, and then they locked characters behind paywalls, and they were, and then loot boxes, and you were like, fucking hell. And then what was worse was they released footage leaked of the game they were working on beforehand. Not them, but that was being worked on beforehand, that showed the Skrull invasion, and it was kind of a secret wars. Man, it just looked phenomenal. And you were like, why didn't I get that? Why did I get this slop? And again,
money.
Both of them were shut down, and it just didn't work, right? It was grindy, it was monetized, there was a single player campaign, but it didn't tie together well, and it just kind of fell apart. Another one guilty of exactly the same thing and more recently, and it probably even more of a blow for a lot of people, because it came from the team that did the Arkham games, with Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? And to have the audacity to tie it back to some of the most phenomenal games ever created in the DC universe, and go, I know it's part of it. Is it fuck? Like,
do you know what I picked up recently for? It was like £7.
I can't believe you bought it.
No, but it was like £7 or something for, like, the mega deluxe edition or whatever. So I thought I'd give it a go. Hated it. It's not what a game should be.
One video for me to watch it.
Yeah, not what a game should be.
Didn't want anything to do with it. The other one that did it was the what was the one with where you played as Nightwing and Red Hood?
Gotham Knights.
Same appalling crap. Like,
do you know, that wasn't too bad. At least it felt like it had a game in there, but it just got very repetitive. It's just like they said, right, this works well. Let's just keep doing that for 8 hours now.
Forever.
Yeah.
What? And you're not Batman. I'm sorry. No, if I ever played Batman game,
but it was better then. It was better than Suicide Squad. And again, it's just, let's quickly ship out cookie cutter generic shooter, because that's what people want.
And again, just briefly on, the WB Studios who did the Arkham games. Again, recently there's been some leaked. It's not footage, but it's kind of pre-renders and things like that of the game that would have come, which was where you saw you as Damian Wayne, so Bruce Wayne's son, Wayne and Talia al Ghul's son, picking up the mantle, but Bruce Wayne as an older, aging Batman, which we love anyway from kind of Dark Knight Returns and all that kind of stuff, and some of the pre-renders of his Batsuit and things like that, and some of the artwork that had come out of that, and you just go, why didn't you do that?
Yeah.
And it's almost like, well, yeah, we make some money off a single player, but we don't make enough money off of single player. So we want to make more money, and people will buy this. But then they make shit that costs millions and doesn't sell, or sells, and people are demanding their money back.
And that's the thing is
Suicide Squad.
I don't think people have an issue with them wanting to make money if they can see a roadmap of improvement as well in the game, and that's the thing. I mean, I know, look, total tangent, look at No Man's Sky, ridiculed when it came out, and I know it's not multiplayer, is it? But
it is. Yes.
Is it multiplayer?
Yeah, you can share bots. Yep.
And it probably works better if you're a smaller studio, but given the time to improve that, whereas now it's like Anthem hasn't made $20 billion in the first 5 hours, so let's can it. Do you know what I mean? And I'm being a bit facetious there, but ultimately that's what it is. It's not got a chance either to improve.
But one that did survive and is very popular now was Fallout 76. And that launched, it was an absolute junk pile. Like, it was a dumpster fire, right? When it launched, it was like all over the place. Didn't fit together. People moaned about how it joined into the world of Fallout. Now look at it, it's thriving, but it had its quirks at launch.
Well, you got Elder Scrolls Online, that's still going and doing well. I mean, you had, what was the famous one recently? Concord, wasn't it?
Concord, yeah. So I've got some of those that kind of had that were shut down very quickly. Concord was one of them. Just quickly on the other ones, the only other one I had was Skull and Bones, which I mean, that thing went through development hell quite literally for years and years and years. Then came out and everyone went, Border Pirates, Rare have done it much better. Can we just go and do that?
That's the thing. If you are going to, because there's only one game, right? Yeah, Sea of Thieves. So you've got room to maneuver in that, right?
Yeah.
But you've got to be at least as good as, or show you're going to be as good as that, if not better, surely.
Well, there was no land-based anything, exploration or anything. So it was like you are a pirate ship.
Yeah.
I don't want to play a game as a pirate ship.
Yeah. I mean, Assassin's
Especially
Creed done it as well,
the back
right?
of one of the best Assassin's Creed games out there.
Yeah, there you
Probably
go,
the best. I know you love it, but Black Flag
Black Flag was great.
amazing.
Yeah.
It was just the best Assassin's Creed game, and because of the ship combat, it fits seamlessly into that world. And then we're going to take that bit and make it really cool. And then you buy it full price, by the way, and go, yeah, but where's the assassin bit? Where do I get off my ship? And no, you can't do that.
Which makes you think, when you've got something like World of Tanks that is still doing really well, how these studios who have got all these sort of mega amounts of history doing mega bucks doing these great games, can't make them work. But you've got World of Tanks is still going. And no disrespect to the World of Tanks, I'm not playing it, but I'm saying it just shows that there is a demand for things like that.
Totally.
You've just got to match the needs of the desires of the consumer,
and build
right?
it with the community in certain cases as well, like World of Tanks did at the beginning.
Yeah.
But yeah, Concord shut down almost immediately, which was a weird one, right? Because it wasn't technically a problem. And as Dave said last week, it was a good game. It was fun, but it came out at the wrong time. You had another one from a good studio, Platinum Game Studio. That was Babylon's Fall, which was a kind of co-op action RPG.
Okay.
That failed and shut down less than a year after release. And then, I don't know if you saw this one, and this was an odd one because the hype around it was quite real, but it was called The Day Before.
Not sure.
So it's quite recent example, and quite infamous. So it was a zombie survival MMO. So around the time when, Walking Dead and everything is probably coming to a bit of an end of culturally, it's like it was relevant for a while, and then it was like COVID. So but it was kind of, I think the problem was it caught itself out. So it did put all out its pre-release videos and how amazing it looked and how beautiful it looked. And then it kind of released and it was like, this isn't what you said it was. And so it came a bit of a scam because it was very unfinished. And the dev shut down not long after. So, and obviously the game got delisted. So yeah, but there are others that are big and have controversial live service elements, some of which led to lore being instigated as a result. And one of the biggest ones, and probably the biggest ones that was the cause of it, was actually Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Yeah,
I don't know if you remember this. So this is a 2017 game.
Yeah, do you?
So it was basically pay to win, right? From loot boxes, right? That, along with, at the time, I think it was FIFA was doing something similar with your.
FIFA actually went to, I think, the European Court. I remember it being in that, because it was quite two things. One is gambling, but you didn't know the odds. It's like they're saying if it's gambling, you should be told what the odds are. But people are paying. And
I can open these things and I don't care. Yeah.
The other thing about these things, is like, it was all fun and games when you could buy horse armour for like £1.49. But some of these things in games, you can spend over £100 on these
easily,
these currencies, right? But
when it's pay to win as well, that whole gambling thing becomes a lot more real, right?
Yeah.
So there was huge discussions around the legislation around loot boxes and microtransactions, to the point where EA had to go and completely rework the progression system to extract and remove those elements from Battlefront 2. And that must have been quite painful as well, right? Because you imagine, I wouldn't even want to imagine what the guys over at Lucasfilm's lawyers look like. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You'd have to go and explain it to them. We said we were going to do this. And have them knocking on your door must be quite horrendous. The other one was Destiny 2. We spoke about Destiny. Yeah. So it was, very successful, obviously, but it had very confusing monetization when it first came out. So they had to remove a bunch of content and a bunch of models and seasonal models and things like that, and annual passes, because the way it was structured was just very confusing and people weren't buying into it. And I think ultimately it was just a big failure. So again, they had to kind of retract and go back and redevelop on top of it. And the last one was actually a mobile game, but was very predatory. And I didn't actually pick it up. I was really tempted to get it. And then I read some stuff about this specific thing, and I'm on my high horse about kind of the monetization. And this was Diablo Immortal. So the Diablo mobile game. Yeah. Because it looked great, genuinely looked great. But as you got deeper into the game, the monetization was very predatory, and it was this pay to play. Do you remember this on mobiles? It doesn't happen so much now, but you can only play for 2 hours a day, or you can only do certain actions for, is that, and it, and that got a big slapped wrist for that as well.
Well, I was, I don't know when it's going to come out, but I was on, weirdly, because we played the advert, Chat Tsunami talking about, for his Resident Evil month. And weirdly, I don't know why, we were talking in that about there was a Harry Potter game that came out on mobile, which I think fell foul of that. There was like this infamous...
Potter, I don't know, but...
Well, there was this infamous bit where, like, at the end of a chapter, like, 2 characters were trapped in something.
Right.
And you have a certain amount of time to achieve that aim of freeing them or whatever. I don't think they'd kill them, but it's like to get the bonuses. But you could only do it, I think, if you actually spent the money. You wouldn't have had enough time, or you wouldn't have had enough currency or whatever to do it. So you had to spend the money, to do that bit. So, there's no way around it.
It's just bullshit, isn't it? I mean, but look, the monetization piece we've spoke about at length in various episodes, to be honest. I mean, it is a bane on gaming. But it is what it is, and it will always be a part of that thing, and people will choose to do it or they'll choose not to. But, multiplayer as it stands, whether it's as a spectator, participant or anything, is in a really healthy place, right? And, I think it's fair to say I'm certainly just getting back into it. I know you've been playing certainly online with some people for quite a while, but I'm really enjoying what it brings. We talked about doom and gloom and some of the worst elements of it, and we haven't covered things like, some of the doxing and fucking swatting and things like that happen as a result of these things, which is the darker side, right? And this isn't what this podcast is about, but it does exist and it is shitty, and stop fucking doing it, right? But what it does do in a really wonderful way is bring people together as well, right? And we should focus on the kind of positive elements around this, and that's really what I take away from it is, this evolution and bringing to life the ability to communicate with people worlds away, or at least countries away, and build a community around some of the really great games that are out there is the positive side of it for me, and the stuff that I'm really loving. Yeah. And I genuinely say this, right? From the bottom of my heart, I genuinely feel like I've missed out on something over the years not being a part of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get it, because for years, and when I say years, I'm probably saying about 10 years, I didn't venture onto multiplayer for a while. But basically, I would say from the 360, because on the 360 days, there was a group of us that would play Call of Duty and FIFA.
Yeah.
Next gen, most of them went on to the PlayStation. I continued on the Xbox. So it was probably only about 2 or 3 years ago, sort of through the pod world, and then meeting like Joey and Alex, etc. So playing some Call of Duty with them, rematch. Now it's Helldivers with yourself, Split Fiction with you, and kind of Baldur's Gate. That I think, I love my single players and stuff like that. But what it is it's going back to 30 years ago, playing, local co-op with your mates or your family.
Yeah.
Because there were people you knew, although I've got some stories I want to share at the end, people you knew, rather than going online for a toxic environment, you're playing with people that are like-minded and just want to have a bit of fun. And I think that's the beauty of it, is when you can play with people like that, it just amplifies it, doesn't it?
100%. Yeah. And look, whether you're a Lamb fan or, you want the latest and greatest, I think, just that, having that community and people to, even if you're just chatting shit, which is inevitably what we do mostly, of the time.
Yeah.
But it brings joy, right? And it's hilarious. Yeah. I want to hear your stories, because we've been going for a while. So let's.
One question. Is there a game that isn't co-op that you would want it to be co-op? Because what are you thinking? The reason being is because you kind of already talked about it today, but I would actually love Mass Effect to be co-op, because if you think about it, each game is a squad of 3. It's you and two teammates. So I would love to be able to go through Mass Effect, say, with yourself and Joey. Now he loves Mass Effect. You heard it here first, right? Imagine playing 3-player Mass Effect, the campaign. I don't know. It'd be... I think I'd like that.
I think there's... I mean, I'm hard pushed to think of one, because I do love a good single-player campaign. But if I could, I think, like, the latest Insomniac stuff that where they do Spider-Man and stuff would be pretty cool, right? Because you know that game you play through, and certainly in the second one, and you split across 2 different Spider-Men, and in some cases, 3. As you play as Venom and as a small part of it. Having an open world where you could be swinging along with your mates and like beating up the shit. But I mean, that would just be brilliant. It'd be a whole bunch of fun. And technically, I suspect it would probably possible on something like the PS5 Pro. But that's probably where I'd go. It's a really solid single player campaign that you could play along together. Would be built brilliantly. But who knows?
But yeah, sorry, I'll keep this brief. But I don't know. I can't even remember if I've mentioned one of these before. But it was just when you were talking about, again, co-op, and I was thinking like local co-op. And so it was all 3 stories with my cousin, right? And it shows even back then we were both fairly competitive. But the first one was just a really stupid one. So he had a VIC-20, Commodore VIC-20. Yeah. Had 1 joystick port, and we were playing a Tour de France game. I don't know why it was interesting. It was a joystick waggler though. You had to.
Oh no!
Do you remember those? So for people, it literally was a joystick waggler. You had to waggle your joystick.
Thompson's Olympic gold decathlon. Daley Thompson's decathlon was another. Oh.
Yeah, and to make your cyclist go, and then if you wanted to turn, you'd hold the fire button down and turn. Anyway. Yeah. And again, this is back in the day where you had a whole market for peripherals, right? So we had joysticks we would prefer. So I would bring mine to his house and we would do a race each. And in between, we would swap the joysticks, right? Yeah. I'll never forget one session we got as far as we'd ever done before, right? And, we've been playing for 2 or 3 hours.
Thrustmaster. That's what I remember.
Quick Shot Pro.
Yes, Dan.
But I never forget. So I went to take his joystick cable out, and as I did it, I knocked the power lead out of the computer.
No,
he went mental. We were both sort of like pretty much having a fight because of that. Because he went. I think I actually ran out the room.
You've ever got in a game, and you elbowed the power cable out.
I think I remember.
They were dodgy in those days anyway on the VIC-20.
I think I remember us shouting. Then I think I looked at him and just ran out his room and ran down to his living room where there were witnesses.
Is he older or younger than you?
He was a year older.
Oh, well, okay.
The other one was Sensible Soccer. We were playing. And we'd play, it would be me, him, a couple of other relatives, whoever was there, we'd play a league. And I remember it was a game he had to win and I beat him. And this was, I scored the winning goal, but if you could press the escape button before the game ended, it would null and void it. You'd have to replay it. So the amount of times we sort of often hit that, but I never forget this one. I wanted to beat him because at that point he was better than me and he was always beating me. I beat him. And I won't say it was fisticuffs, but I never forget, he was like reaching for that. And I'm like literally grabbing onto him, pulling him back. And there's his whole
escape button.
He's trying to get his escape button. We're throwing each other. We're grappling each other. And the other one was another funny thing, again with him, this time on the Amstrad. We were playing Emlyn Hughes International Soccer on it.
God.
And again, it was one joystick port, but he'd bought a joystick splitter. So again, you plug that into the port. It had two ports. You could then plug them in. The thing was, this is back in the day where technology wasn't that great. So you would get interference between the 2 joysticks.
Yes,
so the thing is, right, he would say you were about to take a shot. If you could time it right, you could move the joystick back, which meant you'd spoon the ball right over the goal. So we had a game. It lasted, I'm not going to lie, these games would be, 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
90 odd minutes we were still there because it kept going to extra time.
Proper football match.
Yeah, we kept ruining each other's shots. So we were there for about, and I think we both just looked at each other and said, what are we doing?
There's more to life, surely, than Emlyn Hughes football. Yeah,
we just kept, just sort of spooning their shots over, and it was just so funny. It was just so funny. Mate, all these things they do,
don't they? They trigger memories and they come flooding back, and nostalgia is an absolute joy in the right place. Look, I have very much enjoyed this meander through multiplayer games, and next time we will focus on something like co-op because we'll have finished a game maybe, and have something to show for it. And we do need to finish Split Fiction because that is the true essence of kind of cooperative. You're quite right.
That was the whole reason we came up with this idea for this episode, wasn't it?
100%.
We'll finish that.
Genuinely gutted we didn't get to, but I am loving what we're playing so far. I think it's a beautiful game and so well put together and so clever in what they've done with it. And I'm desperate to get to the last 40 minutes or whatever that Ian was talking about being the best part, because I've read an article about this says exactly the same thing, and I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, I want to do that. So yeah, we will do that. But look, if you've got any thoughts on multiplayers or any memories or anything, please feel free to share them with us on our comments on either Spotify, YouTube, Apple, wherever you get your pods, or watch the vid. Please do like and subscribe to the channel, certainly on YouTube. As I say, always, it doesn't mean a lot to you. It's a click of a button, but it means the world to us. And it means you get to interact with us and see our cool videos and get notified of when they are, when the button goes ding. Danny P, anything more from you to share?
No, just to echo what you said, and leave us comments. We've started to get quite a few comments on like YouTube and TikTok, and please do, because we'll respond. And I just want to say, hi to everyone in the pod pack, hi to the Brain Trust, hi to everyone.
Hi, everyone on the planet, wherever you get your game in, wherever you play and however you play, keep enjoying it, because we love it. And we will catch you next time on Gaming Views. Ta-ta for now.